The Galactic Empire had ruled for thousands of years. Its banners stretched across countless star systems, and its fleets moved like storms through the stars. No world dared to rise against it. Every planet knew the strength of its armadas. When the Empire spoke, others obeyed. When the Empire sent ships, others surrendered. To the lords of the Empire, their power seemed endless. They believed no one in the galaxy could challenge them. The Empire's records told of primitive species scattered across the void, some with fire, some with stone tools, and some with small ships that could barely crawl between moons. None of them mattered. None of them could build anything close to what the Empire had, or so they thought. On the edge of a quiet frontier, near the black stretch of forgotten space, an Imperial scout ship detected something unusual. A vessel had slipped into real space larger than any local freighter, and shaped unlike any design the Empire had catalogued. At first, the scouts laughed. They sent their reports back to command, describing a clumsy design that looked like something from a forgotten age. Its hull lines were sharp, its armor plate simple, and its profile did not shine with the elegant curves of Imperial engineering. "This is no warship," the scout said over the channel. "It must be a broken colony ship or a miner's dream gone wrong." But when the scanners probed deeper, the laughter grew uneasy. The hull did not match any known metal. The structure was layered in a way that resisted the scanners themselves. Energy signatures pulsed through the vessel, not from plasma reactors or crystal cores, but from something else. Something the Empire's scientists had no record of. Reports reached the nearest command station. Commanders gathered around the display. The ship was massive, longer than most Imperial cruisers and armed with rows of weapons that looked strange yet deliberate. Its shields glowed faintly even though no fire touched them. One commander frowned. "What system does it belong to?" The data officer shook his head. "None. Its codes do not match any registry. It claims no allegiance." Whispers filled the command room. A nameless ship? In Imperial space? That alone was daring enough to call for punishment. Yet there was something else, something that unsettled them. On the side of the ship, painted in large white letters, was a word none of them had expected to see. Earth. The room fell silent. Among the Empire's scholars, the word was known only from ancient rumors. Earth or humanity was mentioned in scattered records, always described as weak, always dismissed as a young species. They were said to live in one small corner of the galaxy, far from the heart of power. Some called them dreamers, others called them savages, but no one in the Empire ever called them strong. The idea that a human ship, let alone a battleship, could appear in their space was unthinkable, and yet, there it was. A junior officer laughed nervously. "Perhaps it is a trick, my lord. Pirates may have painted false symbols to frighten us." But the commander did not laugh. His eyes narrowed as he watched the readings climb higher and higher. The ship's power levels were equal to that of an entire Imperial fleet. Its weapons were charged, its defenses were solid, and most frightening of all, it did not flee. Most outsiders, when caught by Imperial scouts, would run or beg for mercy. But this ship simply held its course, steady and calm, as if the presence of the Empire meant nothing to it. The commander gave the order. "Send word to High Command. A foreign warship has entered our space. We must prepare for confrontation." Across the sector, signals carried the news. Fleets stirred in their docks. Admirals rose from their thrones. Governors sent messages of alarm. All waited for the decision of the throne itself. But in every place the report was read, the same question rose in every mind. A human battleship? Impossible. The Empire had crushed species far older and far wiser than humans. They had broken great coalitions and burned worlds that thought themselves free. How could a primitive race, barely noticed in the records, build something so fearsome? And yet the evidence was clear. The readings were undeniable. The ship was real, and it was here. Rumors spread faster than the official reports. In markets, people whispered that a shadow ship had come to challenge the Empire. In garrisons, soldiers joked nervously that maybe they would see this strange human vessel. In courts, nobles spoke in careful tones, wondering if the Empire had finally met a rival. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into the heart of the Empire. Doubt that its fleets were unmatched. Doubt that its power would last forever. In the silence of deep space, the strange battleship drifted closer, its lights burning against the darkness. carried a name none of the Empire's citizens had heard before. The ship was called Valor, and it had come from Earth. The news of the unknown ship reached the local fleet command within hours. Admirals stood in their chambers staring at the projection of the massive vessel. Some were calm, others angry, and a few kept silent. The admiral of the sector, Lord Valen, was a man who had grown in power by crushing small rebellions. He had never faced a true rival, for none had dared to rise against the Empire. To him this was no different. It is only one ship, he declared. No matter how large, no matter how strange, one ship cannot challenge the Empire. We will surround it and demand surrender. If it resists, we will destroy it. Orders spread quickly. The fleet rose from its docks, more than 50 warships moving into formation. Their engines burned bright as they cut across the void, closing in on the intruder. On the bridge of the strange vessel, the human crew of the Valor watched the Imperial fleet approach. 50 ships, said Ensign Mira, her voice steady though her hands tightened on the console. They are forming a wall. Captain Rowan stood tall at the center of the bridge. His eyes stayed fixed on the display, calm and clear. He had known this moment would come. Humanity had not built the Valor for exploration alone. It was a message in steel, a signal to the galaxy that Earth would no longer hide. The communications officer turned to him. Sir, they are broadcasting. They demand we surrender. Rowan gave a slow nod. Respond. The officer sent a reply, simple and firm. This is the Earthship Valor. Withdraw. Across the void, the Imperial fleet received the message. For a moment, silence followed. Then laughter filled the Imperial channels. Earth? One captain mocked. The fables were true then. The savages of the Rim have built a toy ship. Another voice joined in. Withdraw? From our own space? Their arrogance is amusing. Admiral Valen did not laugh. He scowled. Send again. Surrender or be destroyed. When the Valor did not answer, Valen raised his hand. Fire. The Imperial fleet opened fire with all its might. Plasma cannons blazed, missile racks launched. Beams of light streaked through the dark. Space lit up with fury as dozens of ships poured their power toward the single human vessel. On the bridge of the Valor, alarms sang out, but the shields held. Waves of light struck against the glowing barrier, rippling like water before fading away. The crew stared in awe. Shields stable, Mira reported. No breaches. Rowan's voice was steady. Return fire. The Valor's main cannon hummed with power. A single beam of energy shot forward, sharp and bright. It cut through the nearest Imperial cruiser as if the ship were made of paper. The cruiser split apart, fire spilling into the void before vanishing in silence. Gasps filled the Imperial channels. That is impossible, one captain whispered. One shot. Destroyed it completely. Admiral Valen shouted orders, but his voice carried fear now. Keep firing. Overload the shields. Bring it down. The Imperial fleet obeyed. Wave after wave of fire rained upon the human ship, but still the shields held. Then the Valor fired again. Another Imperial ship exploded, then another. Each shot from the human battleship was clean, precise, and final. On Imperial worlds, officers who watched the battle through long-range relays stood frozen. Never had they seen their fleets fall so quickly. Never had they imagined an unknown power could resist, let alone strike back. Within minutes, silence began to fill the Imperial channels. Their mighty fleet, built to conquer, was breaking against a single ship. On the Valor, the crew worked with grim focus. None cheered. None celebrated. They all knew what this meant. Humanity's first true meeting with the Empire was not through words, but through fire. Captain Rowan spoke softly, though all heard him. We fight only because they forced our hand. Let this battle carry our answer to the stars. The wreckage of Imperial ships drifted through the void. Survivors fled, engines burning as they retreated. Admiral Valen watched from his flagship, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of his chair. His fleet, his power, his pride, it was broken. This cannot be, he whispered. One ship cannot do this, but it had. And it had done so in front of the entire Empire. The name of Earth, once a rumor, now spread like fire through the channels of war. The Empire's laughter was gone. It had been replaced by fear. The bridge of the Valor was quiet after the battle. The wreckage of Imperial ships floated in the dark, glowing faintly as fires burned out in the cold of space. For the human crew, the silence was heavier than the sound of weapons. Captain Rowan stood at the center, his hands clasped behind his back. He was not a man who smiled easily. His eyes stayed on the stars, calm but sharp, as if he could see beyond the void itself. His officers waited, not speaking until he did. Finally, Rowan turned toward them. "Report," he said. Ensign Mira's voice was steady, though her face was pale. "Shields at 90%. Hull undamaged. Weapons charged and ready," another officer added. "Enemy ships in full retreat. Long-range scans show they are calling for reinforcements." Rowan gave a single nod. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. He walked toward the observation window. Beyond it, the endless sea of stars stretched forever. Somewhere out there, Earth waited, hidden and watching. He thought of the people back home, unaware of what had just happened. The Empire would not forget this battle. Soon their vengeance would come. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the path that had led humanity here. For decades, Earth had lived quietly. The great powers of the galaxy ignored humans, believing them too weak to matter. That had suited Earth just fine. While the empires fought their wars, humanity grew in silence. They built colonies on nearby worlds, mined the belts, and advanced their science faster than any outsider guessed. The Valor was the proof of that growth. It was the first of its kind, a ship built not only with Earth's hands but with the unity of all nations. Every part of its hull carried the work of people who had set aside their differences for survival. The Empire would never understand that. Rowan opened his eyes and turned back to his officers. "Do not think this is victory," he said firmly. "The Empire has thousands of ships. We destroyed only a handful. They will come back with more, and they will not underestimate us again." The crew listened in silence. None of them doubted his words. One of the younger officers, Lieutenant Hale, raised his voice. "Sir, what if Earth is not ready? What if they find us before we can build more ships?" Rowan studied him for a moment before answering. "Then we stand anyway. Humanity was never ready for the storms of history, yet we faced them all. We endured wars, famine, fire, and ruin, and each time we rose stronger. That is who we are." His words carried through the bridge like steady fire. Even the youngest crew member straightened, finding courage in them. Mira spoke softly, almost as if to herself. "The Empire saw us today. They know we exist. They will not stop now," Rowan nodded. "And so the galaxy will see us too. We will not hide. Not anymore." The officers exchanged glances. It was true. The moment the Valor had fired, Earth's quiet age had ended. Humanity had stepped onto the stage of the galaxy with guns blazing. There was no turning back. Rowan looked down at the command console. A message blinked, waiting to be sent. It was not for the Empire, but for Earth. The people needed to know what had happened. They needed to prepare. "Send it," he ordered. "Full report. Tell Earth the truth." The communication officer tapped the controls. A beam of light carried the message into the void, rushing toward the home world. As the signal left, Rowan stood in silence again. He thought of his family on Earth, of the children who played under blue skies, unaware of the shadows moving among the stars. He thought of the Empire, vast and merciless, and how it would react to being struck by a race it had dismissed as nothing. A storm was coming, but Rowan felt no fear. He felt only resolve. He turned to his officers once more. "We are not conquerors. Remember that. We do not seek war, but if war comes, we will fight with everything we have. That is what it means to carry the name of Earth." The crew answered with a single word, spoken as one. "Aye, Captain." The lights of the bridge glowed softly. Outside, the stars waited. Somewhere beyond them, Imperial fleets were already gathering, but the Valor held its place, proud and unshaken. Humanity had taken its first step into the wider galaxy, not as prey, but as a force to be reckoned with. Captain Rowan looked once more into the endless dark. "Let them come," he whispered. "We will show them who we are." And with that, the Valor prepared for the battles yet to come. The Imperial Palace was built on a world of gold skies and endless towers. Its spires rose so high that they vanished into the clouds, and its halls stretched wide with marble floors that shone like mirrors. Here, the rulers of the Galactic Empire had reigned for centuries, their word law across the stars. Yet on this day, the air inside the throne hall was heavy. Messengers had carried the news from the frontier. An unknown battleship had entered Imperial space. An entire fleet had attacked it. The fleet had failed. The Emperor sat upon the throne, cloaked in black and crowned with silver. His eyes were sharp, but his hands were still. He had faced rebellions, wars, and assassins before, but the report before him now was unlike any he had read. The chamber was filled with voices. Ministers argued, generals shouted, and advisors whispered. "This is only a false tale," one minister said. "The scouts were mistaken." 50 ships destroyed, a general snapped back. "Do you call that a mistake?" Our fleet commander saw it with his own eyes. The enemy ship called itself Valor, and it claimed to be from Earth. At the name, the chamber grew tense. Earth. The word was old, almost forgotten. Many in the Empire thought of it as nothing more than a myth, a world spoken of in passing, a home to a weak people who had never mattered. To hear that Earth had built a battleship strong enough to destroy an Imperial fleet seemed absurd. The Emperor's voice cut through the noise. It was calm, but it held the weight of command. "Tell me what is known." A scholar stepped forward, his robes brushing against the floor. He bowed deeply before speaking. "My Emperor, records of Earth are scarce. They are said to be a young race confined to their own corner of the stars. They were never part of our tribute worlds. They were considered harmless. Harmless, a nobleman scoffed. And yet one of their ships has torn apart our fleet." The scholar lowered his head. "It seems they were underestimated." The Emperor leaned forward slightly on his throne. Underestimated or hidden? The question stirred unease. If humans had been growing in secret, building weapons in silence, then the Empire's watchful eyes had failed. One of the generals struck the floor with his staff. "This cannot stand. One ship may have surprised us, but the Empire has tens of thousands. We must crush them at once. Send the Grand Fleet. Erase Earth before it dares rise further." But another voice spoke, quiet yet clear. It belonged to Minister Callan, a man known for his cold caution. "My Emperor, forgive me, but if one ship can destroy 50, what if they have more? What if Earth has an entire fleet of such vessels?" The chamber fell into silence again. The generals frowned, but none could deny the thought. If Valor was not alone, then the Empire faced something far more dangerous than a rogue vessel. The Emperor tapped his fingers against the armrest. He saw the fear in their eyes. He felt it himself, though he did not show it. The Empire had ruled for centuries because no one dared to challenge it. Now, a name thought forgotten had struck the heart of its pride. Finally, the Emperor spoke. His voice was low, yet it carried to every corner of the hall. "Prepare the fleets. Gather intelligence. Send spies. I want to know everything about this Earth. Where they are, what they build, and how many ships they command. If they are strong, we will learn their strength. If they are weak, we will crush them quickly. But we will not act blindly." The generals bowed. The ministers lowered their heads. But even as they obeyed, whispers grew. Some whispered that the Empire had finally met its equal. Others whispered that this might be the beginning of its fall. In the streets of the capital, rumors already ran wild. Merchants told tales of a single ship that had faced an armada and lived. Citizens wondered if the Empire's rule was truly as eternal as it claimed. Soldiers in the barracks spoke quietly, unsure whether to laugh at the story or shiver at its meaning. The Empire's enemies in faraway corners also listened. Rebel leaders, long hiding in shadows, began to smile. If humans could fight the Empire, perhaps they could too. The Emperor rose from his throne, ending the council. His voice was cold as stone. "One ship will not break the Empire. Remember that. But if Earth dares rise against us, then the stars themselves will burn." He turned and left, his cloak trailing behind him. The court bowed low, yet many did not feel comfort. The Emperor had spoken with strength, but the shadow of doubt had already settled in their hearts. Far away, across the void, the Valor drifted in silence. Its presence was a spark, and that spark had already begun to set fire to the Empire's endless rule. The silence of deep space did not last long. The Empire had been wounded, and it was not in its nature to sit still. From shipyards across the stars, fleets gathered. From hidden docks, battleships rose. From garrisons, soldiers marched into carriers. The order was clear: destroy the human vessel. Admiral Velan, who had survived the first encounter, stood aboard his new flagship. His pride had been broken, but his anger had only grown. He would not allow history to remember him as the man who lost to one foreign ship. Now he commanded an armada of hundreds. "Find them," he ordered coldly. "Bring them to their knees." The armada moved like a tide, stretching across the stars. Each ship carried weapons forged to break worlds. Confidence returned to the officers. No single vessel, no matter how strange, could resist so many. Far from the Imperial core, the Valor waited. Captain Rowan had known this day would come. His crew had worked without rest, repairing shields, testing weapons, and readying the ship for what lay ahead. On the bridge, the air was tense but steady. Ensign Mira checked the readings. Multiple signatures approaching. Hundreds, maybe more. Lieutenant Hale swallowed hard. That's not a fleet. That's an ocean. Rowan's voice was calm. Then we must be the rock that stands against it. The stars outside shifted as the Imperial Armada arrived. One by one, ships dropped from warp, their hulls glittering with the colors of the Empire. The void filled with steel and firepower. A voice crackled through the channel, cold and sharp. This is Admiral Valon of the Galactic Empire. Earth vessel, surrender at once. You cannot fight us all. Rowan gave no reply. His eyes stayed on the display. The Valor stood alone, dwarfed by the size of the Imperial force. Yet it did not move. Its shields glowed faintly, its weapons charged, its engines quiet. Very well, Valon said at last. Then you will burn. The Armada opened fire. The void erupted with light. Beams and blasts poured toward the human ship in endless waves. For a moment it seemed the stars themselves had turned into weapons. On the bridge of the Valor, alarms sang. The shields flared, bending under the storm. Panels shook. Sparks danced across the floor. Shields at 70%, Mira called out. Hold steady, Rowan said. The Valor returned fire. Its main cannon cut through the dark, striking an Imperial destroyer. The ship broke apart instantly. Secondary batteries opened, tearing holes through the enemy's formation. But the Armada pressed forward. For every ship destroyed, more advanced. The void was crowded with enemies, their guns spitting fire. Rowan stood firm. His voice was sharp and steady, guiding his crew. Focus your shots. Strike their engines. Break their lines. The Valor moved with impossible precision. It dodged between blasts, its weapons firing in perfect rhythm. Each shot was chosen, each strike devastating. Imperial cruisers exploded one after another, their wrecks drifting into the path of their allies. Still, the storm did not end. Shields at 40%, Mira shouted. The crew felt the weight of the battle pressing down. The Empire was endless, a wave that would not stop. Yet Rowan's eyes remained calm. Activate the surge, he ordered. The crew froze for a moment. The surge was Earth's greatest secret. It had never been used in real battle. If it failed, the Valor would be helpless. But there was no time to doubt. Rowan repeated firmly, activate. A deep hum filled the ship as energy built in its core. The Valor glowed, light wrapping around it in rippling waves. Then with a sudden burst, the surge unleashed itself. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships faltered. Their engines flickered, their drives sputtered. One by one, massive warships lost power, drifting helplessly in the void. On Valon's flagship, chaos erupted. Officers shouted, controls died, and fear spread. What is this? Valon demanded. No one could answer. The Valor moved among the frozen giants, its weapons firing with deadly accuracy. Ships that had been symbols of the Empire's pride were now little more than targets. On the bridge of the human ship, the crew worked without hesitation. Their hands moved swiftly, their voices steady. The storm had turned, and now the Empire was caught in it. Minutes stretched into hours. By the time the surge faded, the Armada was broken. Wreckage filled the void, drifting in silence. Only a few ships managed to flee, vanishing into warp to carry the tale of what had happened. Rowan stood tall, his face hard but his eyes steady. Damage report. Shields at 20%, Mira said. Engines holding. Weapons still online. The crew breathed out in relief. They had survived the impossible. Rowan, however, did not smile. He looked at the stars beyond the wreckage. This was not the end. The Empire would return, stronger and more desperate, but the message had been sent. A single human ship had faced an armada, and it had not fallen. The battle was over, but the war had only just begun. The Valor floated silently among the drifting wreckage of the Imperial Armada. Fire from destroyed ships glowed faintly against the black of space. The human crew worked in quiet focus, repairing minor damage, checking systems, and tending to the exhausted. Captain Rowan stood at the observation window, staring at the distant stars. He thought of the billions of humans on Earth, unaware of the fight that had just changed the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had hidden, building strength quietly while empires assumed they were nothing. Now the truth was out. Humanity had shown its power. He turned to his officers. "Prepare a broadcast," he said. "Not to the Empire, but to every system they rule." The communications officer, Lieutenant Mira, raised an eyebrow. "A universal message? Are you sure, sir?" "Once it goes out, there is no turning back." Rowan's voice was calm. "It is time. The galaxy must know who we are. Humanity does not seek war. But if war comes to us, we will fight." Mira nodded and began working. Codes were set, frequencies expanded, and the message began to travel across light years. Rowan watched as the ship's systems carried the words beyond the frontier, past patrols and into every corner of the Empire's reach. The message itself was simple. It told of Earth, of humanity's unity, and of the strength hidden for centuries. It reminded the galaxy that humans were not weak. It ended with a warning. Any who threatened humanity would face the full force of its defense. Back in the Empire, the first stations that received the broadcast did not believe it. Reports arrived from distant worlds, each one more fearful than the last. Pilots who had survived the previous battle whispered of a single human ship that destroyed an armada. Governors stared at the stars and wondered if they had been fools to trust the Empire's strength. Even the imperial throne felt the ripple. Advisors crowded around the Emperor, explaining the broadcast. Some pleaded for immediate retaliation. Others urged caution, arguing that humanity's power was unknown and could be greater than anyone imagined. "Earth," whispered one minister. "They are not weak as we believed." The Emperor said nothing at first. He listened, measured, calculating. Then he spoke, his voice steady but cold. "They have revealed themselves. We cannot ignore them. Yet we must understand them before we strike. Gather intelligence. Learn their strength. Do not act blindly." Across the galaxy, the effects of the broadcast were immediate. Rebellious systems and oppressed colonies listened carefully. If humans could resist the Empire, maybe they could too. The whispers of hope spread quietly, growing stronger with each passing hour. On the Valor, Rowan watched the first responses come through sensors. Some systems were curious, some frightened, and some openly cheering. For humanity, the galaxy had always seemed vast and unreachable. Now it had eyes watching, listening, and wondering. Lieutenant Hale spoke quietly, almost to himself. "Sir, they are talking about us. Entire sectors are awake now. They believe we can fight. They believe we can win." Rowan nodded. "That is the point. Humanity does not seek to conquer, but we will not hide. We show strength not to dominate, but to survive." Mira adjusted the communications frequency. "The message is spreading faster than we can track. Some systems are rebroadcasting it. It is reaching even the outermost colonies." Rowan smiled faintly. It was not a smile of joy, but of resolve. For centuries, humans had hidden behind silence. Now they had stepped into the galaxy, not as prey, but as a force to be respected. He turned to the crew. "Prepare for the Empire's response. They will not sit idle. But remember this. The galaxy now knows that humanity exists, and it will remember what it saw today." The crew understood. They had fought against impossible odds and survived. They had carried the first human message into the heart of the Empire. That message would echo, reaching every world under Imperial control. Far away among the stars, the Empire trembled. Fear had entered the halls of power, where it had not existed before. Doubt began to spread. If one human ship could survive, what else might Earth have hidden? Rowan watched the void outside the Valor. Beyond the wreckage and the silent lights of destroyed ships, the galaxy waited. Soon, humanity's place among the stars would no longer be hidden. Soon the Empire and the worlds it ruled would realize that a new power had arrived. "Set course for the outer frontier," Rowan ordered. "We need to regroup, repair, and be ready. The galaxy is listening. We must be prepared for what comes next." The ship moved forward, cutting through the blackness with silent determination. Humanity's first message had been sent. The Empire had seen the power of a single ship, and the galaxy had begun to wonder. Captain Rowan stood once more at the observation window, thinking of Earth. The message was out, the warning clear. Humanity had awakened, and the stars themselves would never forget. The Valor sailed through the quiet of deep space, its engines glowing softly against the black. Captain Rowan stood at the observation window, watching the stars drift by. Every light was a potential world, a possible ally, or a future battlefield. Humanity had sent its first true signal to the galaxy, and now the consequences were beginning to unfold. The Empire was shaken. Reports arrived of distant colonies and systems whispering of Earth's strength. Imperial officers who had once been confident now hesitated, fearful of the unknown power humanity had revealed. Some governors questioned their loyalty. Could they continue to serve an empire that a single human ship had shattered? On the bridge of the Valor, the crew moved quietly but purposefully. They repaired minor damage, ran simulations, and monitored communications. Every system was checked, every weapon calibrated. The battle had been won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. Lieutenant Mira spoke softly. "Captain, signals indicate several systems are seeking contact. They want to know more about us," Rowan nodded. "Prepare secure communications. We will answer only those who show no hostility. We will be careful. Humanity does not strike first without reason, but we also do not hide." The crew exchanged glances. The Valor was more than a ship. It was a symbol of a new era. Humans had endured centuries of being underestimated. Now they were stepping into the galaxy, not as timid observers, but as a race to be respected. Far away, the Imperial throne room was tense. The Emperor studied reports from the frontier, reading about the damage to his fleets and the human broadcast that had reached countless systems. Advisors crowded around, offering strategies and warnings. One general said, "We cannot ignore them. Their strength is unmatched for a single vessel. We must strike quickly, crush them before more ships appear." Minister Kellen shook his head. "We do not know how many ships they have or what resources they command. We cannot act blindly. One attack may awaken the galaxy's resentment further." The Emperor remained silent. He had ruled for centuries, and he had faced countless challenges. Yet the existence of humanity was a question unlike any he had known. One ship had done what the Empire believed impossible. One race, long dismissed, had declared its presence in the galaxy. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "Prepare reconnaissance. Gather intelligence. Do not underestimate humans. They have already shown cunning, strength, and precision. The Empire will adapt, but we must learn first." Back aboard the Valor, Rowan had received reports of other systems responding to humanity's broadcast. Some sent cautious greetings offering trade or aid. Others asked questions, seeking to understand how humans could have hidden their power for so long. Some even whispered of rebellion against the Empire, inspired by humanity's courage. Rowan considered it carefully. Humanity had shown its strength, but it had also given hope. The galaxy had been ruled by fear for centuries. Now a new possibility existed, that individuals and worlds could stand for themselves. "Sir," Mira said, "the Empire is reorganizing its fleets. They will come again." Rowan turned to her. "Let them. We will be ready. Our goal is not conquest. Our goal is survival, and to show the galaxy that humanity cannot be ignored." Lieutenant Hale added, "Captain, there are messages from some smaller colonies. They want to join us. They want to stand with humans." Rowan's expression was firm but thoughtful. "We will protect those who wish to stand with us. But we will not be the Empire for others. We lead only by example, by showing strength and restraint. That is the way humanity moves forward." The Valor adjusted its course, heading toward the outer rim of explored space. Its mission was no longer just survival. It was a statement. Humanity had entered the galaxy, and the galaxy would remember. Above the frontier worlds, whispers turned into murmurs and murmurs into conversations. Rebellion and resistance began to take root, quietly but steadily. The Empire's image of invincibility was shaken. The idea of human strength spread hope across star systems long used to obedience and fear. In the quiet of his bridge, Rowan looked at the stars stretching into infinity. Humanity had taken its first true step into the galaxy. One ship, one message, one act of courage had changed everything. "Prepare for the next phase," he said to his crew. "We have shown the galaxy our strength. Now we must guide it wisely." The crew nodded. They understood their place in history. They were not conquerors nor tyrants. They were humans, standing tall among the stars, carrying hope, courage, and the promise of a new age. As the Valor sailed into the unknown, the Empire watched and planned, but doubt had already taken root. Humanity was no longer a myth, no longer a weak race to be ignored. The age of humans in the galaxy had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and in them, the future waited. A future that humanity would meet head-on, proud, united and unbroken.